Rookie Rush is a bad deck. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Steven Rodriguez. I'm a true champion, and today I wanted to talk about some Digimon hot takes. Basically, what I did was I went on social media and I asked you guys your opinions, first thoughts, and controversial hot takes on the brand new Digimon TCG that recently just wrapped up its first pre-sale here in the US. I'll say whether or not I agree, I'll share my opinions, and I think this is super cool because basically this gives me a chance to chat with you guys and have a discussion about these topics that otherwise wouldn't really warrant their own standalone videos. Now, y'all really wanted to share some of your opinions with me in this video, so it might get a little long, but I'm sure there's gonna be tons of interesting things to talk about, so just bear with me, it should be a good one. If you guys like this idea and enjoy this kind of thing, be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know down below whether or not you want to see more things like this from me in the future, whether it's for Digimon or any other card game that I play. Also, leave a comment down below what take you thought was the hottest of all, and we can have a chat about it in the comments as well. But alright guys, let's go ahead and get started with these super hot and spicy takes. Game looks amazing, but don't like it that it's made by Bandai. That just doesn't give me the confidence in a long-term commitment. Semi-agree, I think, yes, I totally understand the sentiment of being burned by Bandai before, but if DBS is any example of what they can do in terms of actually making a long-term successful game based on a former franchise that has a bunch of popularity, I feel like, given the mistakes of the past, if they can learn from them, Bandai will not fail at making the Digimon TCG survive. I feel like the game has good mechanics, so far has been given tons of great support in Japan, all we need is the same thing here in the US. Looks fun, the art is amazing and nostalgic, I just hate the fact that TCG communities are fighting because people are abandoning their old game for Digimon. I mean, I'm not sure whether I agree or disagree with this. Like, I agree I don't like that people are fighting because people are leaving their other games for Digimon, but I disagree with the fact that people are even leaving their main game for Digimon. I know tons of people that are Vanguard players that are getting into Digimon, but they still play Vanguard. I myself am a Pokemon, Vanguard. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh player for a long time as well, and I still play tons of other card games competitively, or at the very least, casually. And I feel like it's totally possible to have one card game that you really love and another card game that you really love and be competitive and equally invested in both. They're not mutually exclusive events. People do not need to abandon their games just to play Digimon. I feel like this is like a byproduct of how much people do just love this game. Maybe it seems like they love it more than their old game, but I promise you they love their main game just as much. I mean, I know people who play Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon. Anything is possible. In my personal opinion, a Pot of Desires-like card would be a great addition to the game. In case you guys don't know, Pot of Desires banish 10 cards on the top of your deck face down, draw 2 cards. You can only activate 1 Pot of Desires per turn. Disagree. I feel like while yes, this card would be super cool, a +1 to hand is always nice. Depending on where those cards go, you can get an insane amount of combos, like do they go to the trash? Do they go to an actual exile or remove from play zone? There's too many questions, there's too many concerns about power creep, generic deck building, just power, and it becomes this idea of, oh, the game is now built on generic staples versus on just being a good deck. Also, do not let a card like this ever go in blue or purple. They do not need any more value. I think it's an amazing card game because it's got so much going for it. The card art is a 10 out of 10, the memory system is unique and fun to strategize with, Digivolving is always awesome, and I get to draw more cards when Digivolving, heck yes, there is a ton of Digimon and cool effects. Completely agree, perfectly sums up how many awesome things are in this game, the mechanics, the art, the overall lore and franchise that's backing it in the form of Digimon. It is a 10 out of 10. At first, I feared Bandai wouldn't allow many hybrid decks, like it would be a less viable option to play a multicolored deck. But I'm glad there are more double-colored Digimon releases with each new set, it helps a lot on that problem. Agree. I feel like with the inherent deck-building mechanics of the Digimon TCG, it's totally possible to have really viable hybrid strategies. I mean, I posted 2 videos just a second ago talking about 2 of the best decks in 1.0 format. The decks just get crazier and crazier with how many options you get in the future, especially come 1.5 time. As great as the webcam events are, I worry in the current climate that Digimon may struggle without an online client, which would be terribly disappointing considering how awesome this game seems it could be. Disagree. While yes, an online client would be amazing for the competitive and just general longevity of this game, I feel like the real selling points of the Digimon TCG are the Digimon TCG. It's not that I get to go to cool events, get cool prizes, it's that I get to play with these beautiful cards, experience this amazing game with these awesome mechanics, and be a part of this super awesome community. I mean, there was 5 months where, without any actual knowledge of getting this game, we here in the US were playing with proxies, creating Discord servers, creating Facebook groups, because this game is just so amazing and we wanted to be a part of it. The fact that we have it now and it's official and we can have real tournaments is simply a cherry on top. It is not actually needed to make this game successful. The game itself will get the job done. I hope Bandai doesn't mess up on distribution, and hopefully the anime keeps going to give the TCG more advertising. Maybe it'll break into the top 3, at the very least top 4, because of name recognition. I agree with the first point, but I disagree with the second point. Firstly, yes, Bandai, please do not underproduce in the US. Just give us cards, we will buy them, I promise. And Bandai's been known for failing on that quite a lot, so hopefully they've learned from their past mistakes, but you never know. Pursuant to the second point, I kind of disagree with the notion that for a card game to be quote-unquote successful, it needs to rival one of the big 3. That to me is just unrealistic and not really the goal that most card game developers should have. In my opinion, their goal should be within the first 2 years, still existing, having an active player base that is constantly trying to compete in tournaments, give actual support to the game and the community at large. That to me is a really good short-term goal that can lead to more long-term success and longevity. And once we get to that point where we're like 4 or 5 years in, then we can have the discussion of, oh, is this the next Magic? Is this the next Pokemon? Who knows, it could be bigger. So while I may want this game to be one of the biggest games ever created, I do not think it needs to be in order to be successful. The memory system is one of the best resource systems in any card game ever. Agree. I've played it all, from everything's free Yu-Gi-Oh! To 1 mana a turn Magic, and let me tell you, I love the memory system in the Digimon TCG. The way I kind of see it is the memory gauge is the main source of interaction you have with your opponent. Sure, the card you can play from your hand can be free, but depending on how expensive it is, you can give your opponent the opportunity to do the exact same thing or respond with something even bigger during their turn. Honestly, this is a really awesome feature of the game, and I'm super happy Bandai brought it in from their other game, Chrono Clash. Omnimon is objectively a worse card than Millenniumon. However, the decks that support Omnimon are better currently than the decks that support Millenniumon. I'm not sure about this one. While yes, I agree with the sentiment that red and blue are better decks at turboing to level 7 than purple and black are, I don't actually think Millenniumon's a better card than Omnimon. But maybe he could be. You know what? I would love to see the argument. You know, both have aspects of removal, but one is inherently more aggressive, while the other one just lingers on the board and is immune to removal spells. Well, 90% of removal spells. Fun fact, Millenniumon is a good counter to Millenniumon. So I'm actually not sure. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Which is better, Omnimon or Millenniumon in a vacuum? I feel like both have their merits, but I'll leave that one up to the comment section. Hot take. This one prefaces, hot take, sets are coming out on a decent pace. Not too fast and not too slow. Promos aren't impossible to get and not overpowered to the point where you need them to win games. Half agree, half disagree. Man, all these points, it's hard for me to make a decision. First things first, I do agree with you that the promos are in no way broken and actually pretty balanced and really cool to own in your collection. The second point, however, is where we're going to have an issue. I personally believe that the original release of 1.0 and 1.5 is way too rushed. While yes, the 1.0 format does feel quote-unquote unfinished, and 1.5 does a really good job of rounding off every single color and giving lots of great options for not only archetype-based support, but also just generic support, I feel like having 2 sets back-to-back with over 150 different types of cards is just insane. In the future, though, we do have confirmed a May release for the Set 4 format of the Digimon TCG, which kind of is funny. You know, our 3rd set is called Set 4, but you know what? It's fine. And that looks to be the start of a brand new 2 to around 3 month cycle for our brand new sets here in the US, as well as other countries, which to me is a perfect pace for any TCG, let alone the Digimon TCG. Whew, these takes are getting spicy. I gotta drink some water. You guys are killing me. Vanilla units are too strong. That's it. That's the tweet. Agree. I think it's really cool that in this game, there's just so much value inherent within Digimon. I mean, think about it. Digimon can attack, they can win you the game, they can protect you, and they can draw you cards just by coming into play. That's absolutely insane. and the big benefit to vanilla cards is they're cheaper on average compared to other things, and they have really simple evolution costs that let you cycle through your deck, advance your board state, and just get an overall consistent feel in every game you play. Vanillas in this game are a clear winner for some of the most powerful and consistent cards in the game, and that's super nice to see that the most simple kind of Digimon is one of the most powerful. What I like is that you can make a good deck out of anything. Agree. I am on record for saying that pretty much every single color in the 1.0 format is viable. I think there is a viable deck within every single color for this current format, and that's just amazing to see because that means you can take a favorite Digimon, you can take a Digimon you've always wanted to try out, you can take a Digimon that you just like the look of or like the effects of, and you're like, I want to make a deck out of this. And who knows, it might be the next best thing, it could be a great counter to the meta, or it can just work. And that's really, really cool, and all that can be done based on how simple and just consistent the deck building mechanic is. All you need is Digimon and your deck will work. That's so cool. The fact that we have like the two spectrums of Rookie Rush, the smallest dude thrown into a deck and that works, and Mega Zoo, the biggest dude thrown into a deck and that works, just proves to you the spectrum of like, oh yeah, anything is possible in this game and it can totally be competitive and viable. That's just so cool to me, and I completely agree with your point that anything you want can work, and you know what? Probably will work too. Go for it, boys and girls. Don't let your dreams just be dreams. Oh, this is actually a 1.5 opinion. Hot take, Omnimon Alter-S will be more significant in 1.5 meta than Omnimon by a decent amount, and is the much better option when building around Gallantmon. Disagree, I think, because while I do agree with you that Alter-S is really powerful because it is essentially just a board wipe, and that's really, really strong, the overall inherent aggression that a card like Omnimon adds to red and even blue decks is super cool. Being able to just take away 4 security from your opponent essentially with one dude is really powerful. And while Alter-S is really good for sort of winning the game or coming back in the game, Omnimon is just the ultimate statement card, which to me seems like the pure purpose of these cards. So in my brain, it's like Omnimon's the ultimate statement and Alter-S is the ultimate comeback. And while both of these are super strong, I feel like it is truly subjective which one's actually better. It depends on the situation you're in and what deck you're playing against and or what you actually need out of a given turn. And in terms of which one's good with which one, I don't think it actually matters which boss unit you play Omnimon or Alter-S with, as long as you can actually play it at all. But personally, I do love Gallantmon as a really powerful finisher. In 1.5 format, though, I am a bigger fan of Blitzgreymon, though, because he's the ultimate comeback card, which is super cool. So I like the go-getter attitude in this hot take, but I feel like there's too many factors to consider to say one is just generically better than the other, because it's kind of a subjective thing and not really an objective thing. I go back and forth on if I think level 7s are worth the resources you have to put into them. Once the Digivolution effects are resolved, they just become beat sticks, and it's easy to tell if someone is trying to build one up with Digivolution effects and just target that stack with removal. I'm not sure if I agree or disagree with this one. Let's like work through it here. Let's take the example of Omnimon. I have 5 dudes. That's 5 cards committed, but each card replaces himself in hand if I evolve on top. Therefore, I'm drawing those cards right back. Therefore, there's no sacrificing of cards in hand. Therefore, no card advantage is lost. The only real resource you're sacrificing is the amount of turns it takes to actually digivolve. I think the average turn is like 3 to 4. So there's 3 turns. You could have been involving up other things and playing other things and going in for attacks, which could have been nice for pushing the game state. But again, it's not really a question of resources, it's more a question of game state, and the game state situation you get from all the tempo and aggression you gain by just having that Omnimon stick on board and maybe removing something of your opponent or dealing like 4 damage in 1 turn feels like a really nice payoff for all those turns. So I don't know. I think the argument that, oh yeah, it's obvious what they're doing so I can counter it is valid, but the argument that it's a waste of resources I feel isn't. So I'm gonna have to say I disagree with this point. I feel like so many decks are built around having level 7s that are super powerful, and those are very valid strategies for just achieving a victory, that it's definitely worth it. And some of them can even counter removal spells like Millenniumon, for example, which I would say is a great investment to have because while he may be a beat stick, he's a beat stick that lingers, which is super great. So I'm gonna disagree with this point, but I do like where this kind of hot take was coming from. Definitely a thinker for sure. We have cards that interact with names and cards that interact with attributes. Those are 2 different types of archetypes and how the game is. So playing it out more and more, you can talk about that. This one's a little bit confusing, but essentially it's about how there's like 2 different types of support. There's like name-based support, and there's like archetype-based support in like 1.5, for example, with the Ragnarlodman. And he's basically asking if I think this is a really cool thing. And the answer is 100% yes. Archetypes are an amazing thing to include in game design. While yes, they could lead to some design flaws down the line if only that archetype gets support, or if that's the only good archetype that gets support for said color, I do feel like having some kind of archetype, whether it's name-based or whether it's just color-based, is super cool because it essentially allows you to have themes or playstyles within colors that could be separate or the same as the main color support, which adds more breadth and depth to your game, which is always a good thing in my opinion. Some of my favorite ones, for example, are Download, Ragnarlodman, and of course, Shine Greymon Tamers. Also, shout out to Taiga and Tyrannomon for 1.0, it's a pretty fun deck. I wish Rookie Rush wasn't a deck. I wish Bandai brought over the Sentinel mechanic from Chrono Clash because they're very similar games, but Sentinel was the reason Rookie Rush didn't exist in Chrono Clash. Disagree. While I understand the sentiment of like, oh, Rookie Rush is annoying, I hate playing against it, I, for one, personally do not think the deck is nearly good enough to warrant all the hype it's been getting here in the 1.0 format, or let alone all the tech cards people are throwing in their decks. People are putting in Volcanic Dramons in green, for goodness sakes, to try and beat the deck. I'm like, you're green! Just beat them! You rest their stuff anyway, you have tons of blockers in your deck, you're fine! Don't worry about Rookie Rush. I personally think the deck is actually trash, and no one should actually even care to play against it, but I understand it's popular, I understand it's annoying, especially for newer players to deal with. While all that may be true, no matter what, it does not warrant some kind of mechanic change being implemented in the Digimon TCG. I have no idea what Sentinel is or how Chrono Clash really works, but I assume it's some kind of extra way to protect yourself in the early and mid game, and while that may be cool for the Digimon TCG to kind of stop aggro style strategies, I don't think it's needed at all. Rookie Rush has no way to outplay you guys, just beat him. The game needs a mulligan of some shape. Getting a bricked out hand never feels great, and having to decide when to risk digging for better cards versus keeping what you have adds an element of skill to the opening of the match. Disagree. Frankly, thanks to the Digivolve mechanic, I feel like so many decks have just inherent consistency built in that a mulligan just isn't needed to achieve your strategy. And sure, in the situation where like you open dead, you have to play a level 5 from your hand, give your opponent 7 memory for their turn, let's say, if they don't have a response to actually remove whatever you just played during your turn, you could in theory go into a level 6 on your next turn, which could be a really nice just power play for you and can carry you throughout the rest of the game, even though you did open dead in the beginning of the game. Heck, there's video of me on this channel literally opening 4 Gaia Force and a Biyumon in a red v red matchup, and I ended up winning the game. Boys and girls, I think this game has so much inherent comeback potential thanks to the mechanics within it. So opening dead is not the end of the world. I know it sucks in the moment, but I promise you, just play it out, do your best, and you might be surprised by what happens. Just because there is a Japanese meta doesn't mean that's exactly what our meta is. I wish people would see that and actually attempt to build something different instead of net decking and making assumptions about meta. You were so close on this one. First of all, I completely agree on the point that our meta is different than Japanese meta. Sometimes English players just play what they want. Sometimes we think differently than Japanese players do, etc., etc. There's so many variables, it's not even funny. But it's your second point that I'm gonna have to disagree with. While yes, I totally agree with the idea that innovation is an amazing thing to have in card games, and this game has a ton of room for it, I feel like net decking, or like sort of the stigma / negative connotation with net decking, should just be erased from card games in general. I feel like if anyone is ever in doubt of what they should play, going to someone who did well and using their list is a great place to start, especially for newer players. And even if you're not a newer player, even if you're someone who's played the game for years and all you want to do is figure out what the newest meta is and play whatever the best deck is, I think there's still tons of room for diversity within that game in terms of how you use that deck. That, to me, is how a healthy meta is actually born. Not necessarily what decks are being played, but how you use those decks in the matchups you play. I'm actually a firm believer that a quote-unquote diverse meta is not a healthy meta. A healthy meta is a healthy meta, if that makes sense. And boom, there you guys go. That's it for all the opinions I have on your opinions in the Digimon TCG. Honestly, I've just been so impressed by this community every single day, and this video is no different. Y'all had so much positive things to say about the game, and even some of the minor negative things or just controversial things you guys had to say were, I think, pretty positive in terms of how they can be reflected on and built upon in the future. This game just has, in my opinion, so much room for competitive viability, competitive innovation, and just overall positivity in general that I have a very nice, optimistic idea for its future, and this video, I think, proves that. In the future, though, I might do a bit more spicy things with like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Vanguard Zero, or really whatever. If you guys want to leave any suggestions for sort of the next sort of opinion piece you want me to make on card games, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. I would love to see them. And if you did enjoy this video and want to see more videos like it in the future, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications so you know when my videos go live for you. Also, if there's anything in this video you want me to talk about more or elaborate on, I do go live every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday over on Twitch. I spend a lot of time in just chatting, and let's face it guys, I love talking about this game and other games, so if you want to come stop by, hang out, ask some questions, and hopefully get a discussion going, we can totally do that, and it'd be super fun. Links to my Twitch down below, as always. But with that being said, I've been your true champion, Steven. Please be sure to work hard, rest easy, and live well. And I will see you all next time. Peace.